Hello, everybody, and welcome to our webinar today. We are all excited to see you, and I think we got a couple of extra minutes for people to join us so we can start and move on forward. Let me introduce our speakers today. My name is Maria, and I'm a marketing manager at Endowance. I will be playing the role of host today, so making sure everybody have a good connection and have a good experience today. We also have Rob Heinekamp with us, who is the CEO at Endowance. He will be sharing our expertise with the integration solutions and our product Duet 360, which Endowance built, which he will talk more about very soon. Just a quick housekeeping. If you guys have any questions, there's a Q&A section on the bar of your webinar. Please feel free to ask any questions. We will answer them during the webinar, or we also have a special section for Q&As at the end. We will cover everything. Let's go over our agenda for today. We're going to cover the Endowance facts really quick. I'm sure most of you already heard about us or kind of saw us in your ecosystem, but we're still going to, introduce ourselves properly and cover who we are and what we do. The main focus today would be on our integration solution, which we built, which is called Duet 360. We're going to talk about how it differentiates with the competitors and how is it different and why we build it and how it works. We're also going to show you a live demo of the product, which is something is very exciting, very cool, and we're going to see how it works in real time. And we're going to conclude the webinar with how to engage with us and the whole purpose of it to show you what we can do for you and for your accounts and how we can help you guys with your deals and how we can engage with you. Just a quick reminder for everybody, because this is an internal webinar, we want to make sure you understand none of this information or presentation should be shared with outside. If you have any questions or would like to see more details, just reach out to us and we will assist you with anything you might need. As I promised, let's just go quickly over some Endowance facts and who we are. We were founded in 2007, and you see that little cloud in there, which represents what we were the biggest advocates for the cloud-based solution. Most of our customers, well, if not all of them, are using the cloud-based solutions, and we always advocate for them. So it's important for us. We implemented throughout this time more than 370 projects, which include Salesforce, and probably roughly about 150 of them include some sort of integration with one or more endpoints. The one thing we're really proud of, which was all our consultants have more than 15 years of business background, and it is important because we always share with our customers, we focus on your processes first, and whatever technology behind this, they can have accommodated. The processes are the main focus for us for every project. And as you can see, it's working pretty well because our customers are very happy. Our satisfaction score is 9.86 out of 10, based on the independent survey. So we are trying to keep our customer base happy. And 70% of our customer base is manufacturing. It's historically, we do cover more industries, but historically manufacturing takes most of the space in our business. And we also have a team in US and Europe. So we cover a pretty significant territory, and we have a luxury of when the US side is sleeping, European side is working. So we close to 24/7 business operations. This is quickly about Endowance, and let me go to our main focus, and I'm going to hand this presentation to Rob so he can take over and share the details on the integration solution. Rob, are you with us?
Yes, I am. Good morning, everyone.
Perfect.
Thank you, Maria, for sharing the details. So right now, what I'm going to do, we're going to go into a little bit of the detail on what Duet is, how it all works, and what the whole process is going to look like. And so if you look at the current target market, who is going to be your audience? Your audience is your existing Salesforce customers. So they purchased your products, and how you can keep them in the ecosystem is that add stickiness. In other words, if you have Salesforce working and you want to have your customer not be able to actually attrit, the additional stickiness factor would be an integration. If you have a customer that's happy, great, you can add additional value. If you have a customer who needs some of that information coming from the ERP into Salesforce, that it in and of itself is fairly straightforward with Duet, as we will talk about in a little bit. But it also will improve your stickiness, so the customer will stick with you because of the fact that they have their product, they have an integration to an ERP, and replacing all that will be a challenge. And so customers do not necessarily attrit very easily after they have an integration. The other part is that your prospective buyer. So literally every time when we run into a conversation, have a conversation, it's a commercial off-the-shelf product. Is it a product that the customer, when they purchase it, what are they looking for? They may look at different CRM vendors. And what we found is that in the sales cycles that we've gone through with the Salesforce reps, we found that Duet product is actually a differentiating factor for customers in the deals. So an example is yesterday we were on the phone with a prospect looking for Salesforce in a competitive process with HubSpot. And the customer communicated that the fact that HubSpot doesn't have an integration to their current ERP, this was an in-force sideline, HubSpot was no longer in the mix. So what ended happening is that Salesforce is left, and we're basically gonna get the deal in. And the reality is the differentiating factor was the integration with Duet 360. So the target market is a significant market. And if you can go to the next slide. All right, so what is Duet 360? So when we developed Duet 360, what was important for us is to make it available to a big market space. So manufacturing, there's variations of a couple of Salesforce users up to thousands of Salesforce users. And we wanted to make this application available. Independent of the size of your business, you always need your Salesforce and ERPs to integrate. And specifically for a manufacturing space, that's true. A lot of the functionality in the manufacturing space happens in ERP, but with the recent acquisitions of Salesforce, adding the Salesforce CPQ, adding field service lightning as a capability in Salesforce, you will see a shift of specific processes moving into Salesforce. But a lot of the data and functionality and process still happens in ERP. So we decided to build Duet 360. It's a managed service. It's hosted in AWS and it's built on the Jitterbit platform. One of the requirements that we had is that it has to be pervasive and it has to be a low-cost solution. In other words, it has to be easy to implement. It has to have the flexibility to integrate fairly easily and as much off the shelf as possible. The Jitterbit platform does give us a lot of the ability to actually be flexible. So we have customers that have the ERPs integrated to Salesforce using XML messages or web services or APIs, depending on the version of the product. And we have even customers that we pull in data from an Excel sheet based on an order number somewhere in the Excel sheet that goes into Salesforce and it becomes an order. So lots of flexibility, very easy to integrate. Now, Duet out of the box will be based on the bulk API on the Salesforce side, where we have XML messages coming in and going out. So it's all XML based, just because that gives us a lot of flexibility again. So it's a very solid solution that we have provided to the market over the past 2 years. Next slide, Maria. So when we look at the market space, we run into a couple of companies. We see the Dell Boomies and we see the Informaticas in the space. What you will find is that the Dell Boomies and Informaticas or any other solution that you can find in the market for the manufacturing space, it's all going to be custom built. So you have your Salesforce, you have your ERP, but there's no predefined connector, no pre-built anything other than there's a toolbox. And it takes a lot of development on the Salesforce side and it takes a lot of development on the ERP side to make it all work. So in general, what will happen is that if you look at the Informaticas of the world and the Dell Boomis, you'll have a custom built solution. It's going to be point to point, and anything that changes on the Salesforce side, on the ERP side, will result in additional cost for the customer. So maintenance becomes a challenge, because every time when anything happens in your infrastructure, there's going to be an ongoing cost. And so that happens with pre-built connectors. Now, when we build Duet, it's not a connector. And what you'll see is we have a solution, and it's a very different play. Yes, we use a platform to connect, and that's a Jitterbit platform, and that's all fine. That works. We know it works very well. But the value of Duet 360 is not in the fact that we can connect both systems. The value comes in where we actually build the logic on top of the platform and have business objects integrated between the systems. So it's not a connector, it's a complete solution that integrates 14 objects between ERP and Salesforce. And so if you go from the left to the right, on the Salesforce side, we have a managed package. The managed package was built in about a year. It has over 1,000 items in the managed package. So there's objects, additional objects, of course, there's 21 of them. There's 180,000 lines of code. There's additional Apex, quite a bit of Apex. There's workflows, there's triggers, pretty much everything that you need in order to integrate. So over 1,000 items. The connection happens with the bulk API on the Salesforce side to Jitterbit. In Jitterbit, we map the business logic between the ERP and Salesforce. And then on the ERP side, there's the need to pull the data from the ERP. It generally is based on a certain table that we have access to, so we can pull the data. So the logic is all built in. When you buy Duet, you buy the managed package, you buy the solution based on Jitterbit and all the connections. So it's more than just a connector, which is a very important differentiator in the market, because if it would be just a connector, we'd be doing the same thing as the Dell Boomis and the Informaticas of the world. So that's definitely a very big differentiator when it comes to Duet 360 as a product. So what versions of Duet do we offer? So we've been doing this integrations with ERPs and Salesforce for over 8 years now. And specifically for the manufacturing space, as Maria communicated already, we have over 70% of our business in the manufacturing space. And based on the experiences that we've had, we built Duet. So it includes the best practices of the world. It includes everything that you'll need in order to start your process as a customer. Duet has different versions of it. Are first of all the enterprise version, which is the base version. It does require that's the base, and that's the one that is important for all of the other integrations. So in other words, enterprise is the base, and then we're going to add other options. As you can see on the slide, we have Duet 360 for Salesforce CPQ. That's an additional charge for the customer. And what it does, it takes the Salesforce CPQ quote and it basically feeds it into the bill of material on the ERP side. So that's an additional product that we have on top of enterprise. We also provide a field service lightning process and so Duet 360 for field service lightning assumes all of the processes happen in Salesforce, but there are some certain things that do not happen in Salesforce. For example, most customers, they keep their inventory in their ERP and not in their Salesforce. It's just how processes are working, because inventory has a lot of ties to different processes in the backend. And so is pricing. So a lot of the times we see inventory and pricing being part of ERP. And so that requires an integration. So Duet 360 for field service lightning provides that functionality and makes sure there's a seamless process between your ERP and your Salesforce, supporting your customer business process. And then the final one is a Duet 360 for service management. What happens there is there's customers that will keep their ERP as their system of record for service management, and they may never go to a field service lightning. For those customers, we offer an integration as well. What's different is that there is going to be a different type of license for them that they need. They will need Service Cloud, and they may need additional Service Cloud licenses, and they may say, I want my service team in Salesforce. And what happens is that the process works like this. The customer calls in, the service rep picks up the phone, and there's a whole process of creating the case in Salesforce. That's the starting point. As soon as the starting point is done, it triggers something that actually for the data to go into your ERP, and the ERP will be the system of record for that service management process. So all the scheduling and all the parts and all the labor, all the information that resides in ERP will be calculated, will be added to the service order, and that information will flow back into Salesforce. So the differences between Field Service Lightning and the service management in ERP is, in Field Service Lightning, 95% of the process happens in Salesforce, and therefore licenses for Salesforce are needed. And customers that do not want to move their service components into Salesforce, we still support them. We still have the integration where all the 95% of the process happens in ERP, and the other 5% will still reside in Salesforce. So there's definitely an upside in selling additional licenses to your customer. Those are the versions. So when we look at Duet, so this is the base of Duet. So on the top you see the master data in blue, and on the bottom you see transactional data. The bottom, the different colors are basically the base product of Duet 360 Enterprise. That's the orange boxes. And the green boxes are the service management boxes. That means the Field Service Lightning component and service management components are included. So when you go from the top to the bottom, we have accounts contacts, they go bidirectional. So when the sales rep is in the field and the customer rep create an account in Salesforce, they should be able to do that. You should be able to create an account and contact information in Salesforce. At some point in time, that data needs to flow into your ERP or your customer's ERP for the reason of financial approval. Most of our customers have financial approvals or actually finance teams in their ERP, and they will need to approve an account before they can do financial transactions with you. So terms and conditions, credit limits, certain information that feeds from ERP into an account in Salesforce is important. So the account does get synchronized to your ERP. The finance team approves the account and it goes back into Salesforce, and it all goes close to real time. So if the process is streamlined and the teams work close together, this could be a 5 to 10 minute process for the account to be approved. A contact also can go bidirectional. Contacts can be created in Salesforce and or in your ERP. Duet will facilitate the integration for both. So there's really the dependency here is, how do your customers want that to go? Do they want Salesforce contacts in the ERP and vice versa? It really depends on the requirements. Either way, it's very simple to configure for us. So it's something that is easy to do. Out of the box, Salesforce will have accounts as their main entity for customers. Most manufacturing and distribution companies, they have a different structure. They have a bill to and a ship to structure. In other words, a bill to is generally the main account. That's where the dollars are coming from. That's where the customer pays you. And then the locations are where they ship their products are the ship tos. So most of the time, what will happen is that we will, as part of the implementation for manufacturing distribution, we will actually have the bill to and ship to hierarchy implemented. And so that meets pretty much all of the manufacturing needs that we generally see. And that information will come from your ERP, from your customer's ERP. So bill tos and ship tos are generally maintained in your ERP, and they will flow into Salesforce, and Salesforce will be a consumer of that data. We do have some customers that request that ship tos are maintained in Salesforce. We facilitate those requests. Those are very minor changes and they are doable. Bill to argue, we would argue, do not have an ERP be the system of record. It's not data that should be, system of record should not be Salesforce. It should be finance owning that in your ERP, in your customer's ERP. In order for us to synchronize and actually have Salesforce CPQ work well, the data that comes from ERP that is needed are items, which are products in Salesforce. price books, of course, that come out of your ERP, customer's ERP. And there's different ERPs. They all have different ways of determining pricing. A great example is, for example, Infor Sightline has 7 different types and levels of pricing. Depending on the customer's requirements, that pricing gets more complicated or easier. Either way, the data will flow into Salesforce in multiple price books if needed. We have customers that have 35 price books that are coming from the ERP into Salesforce, and they are used by Salesforce CPQ in order to create the quote. And then the last part is the assets. That's more for service. So when you have a customer that has a service, a field service or service management implemented, what will happen is that you need to understand which assets have been deployed in your customer's infrastructure. So in other words, what do they own? Which products do they own? And those are important in order for field service to actually function. If a customer calls about a asset that's not working and there's to be some type of repair needs to be done, that repair needs to be done on specific assets. So there has to be information in Salesforce in order to understand what assets are there and how and what needs to be repaired. Now I'm going into more of transactional data. So the customer orders and the customer quotes. Duet will actually support quoting in Salesforce as well as quoting in ERPs. We do prefer the customers to actually quote in their Salesforce using Salesforce CPQ, but not all customers can or want to do that. Some customers that we work with have extremely complex quoting with thousands of line items, and they're not comfortable moving that from the ERP into Salesforce. We, however, also have customers that do make that move, and they use Salesforce CPQ. And what happens is that the quote is created in Salesforce. It has different versions, and every version has going to have a primary quote. So at any time that quote will be available and new versions will be having the new primary. At some point, that quote will need to flow into their ERP, and that's where it either becomes a quote in ERP or an order. Duet will support both, so we can say quotes to order, fairly simple, from Salesforce quote to an ERP order, or a Salesforce quote becomes an ERP quote where the customer is going to convert the quote into an order. And all of the information that you see on the screen, it will flow back into Salesforce. So if a quote gets created in Salesforce, it becomes an order in ERP. That order will flow back into Salesforce. And all of this happens close to real time. And it's going to be associated to a quote. So in other words, you know that if a quote got submitted, there's an order that's being created off of it. And you have the ability to track that order. This information from ERP for all of the objects that you see here, it will flow into ERP, into Salesforce close to real time. And I'll show you on the iPad in a little bit in the demo how that's going to look for your customers, reps, when they start talking to the customer. They have a lot of more visibility than they used to have before implementing a solution like Duet 360. We also offer shipment information, invoice information, receivables, transactions, and customer returns to our customers using Duet out of the box. This information will flow into Salesforce. So what's going to happen is that when your customer's rep meets their customer, they're going to have the financial data as well as the sales data. In other words, quotes, orders, all the information resides in Salesforce now. And they also have the information on shipments. So the customer now is going to ask the question, where's my shipment? The shipment is in Minnesota. It's going to be shipped in 2 days. It's going to be there at 5 p.m. on Friday. By the way, customer, this invoice is overdue. Can we take care of the payment? And also, customer, you have a customer return. It was processed in our warehouse, and it's going to be $10,000 credit on your next order. All this information will now not only be in ERP, but it will also be in Salesforce. Now on to the green boxes. Those are very specific to service. This is the addition of Field Service Lightning. As you see, a lot of this information will be stored in both systems. And I'm not going to go into too much detail here, but it's the same thing. When a case comes in, the order gets created. We keep track of the contracts, of the warranties, of the service history. and all the scheduling and dispatching that's going on. So when the customer actually calls in, or when somebody talks to the customer, whether that's sales or service, they have the latest and the greatest on all of the cases that were logged with your company or with the customer's company. So this in a nutshell is Duet 360. It is quite comprehensive. We've worked on this for a year, and we have the flexibility to connect to any ERP using Salesforce as the CRM. All right, now on to what do we see in the market space. So customers have options. Customers do choose Delboomi, they do choose Informatica as their integration platform. Now what's going on is that as we built Duet 360 on the Jitterbit platform, it's an off-the-shelf product. And so the cost is fairly low. And so compared to the Informaticas and the Delboomis, we come in lower because it's a commercialized product and it's available off the shelf. The functionality that you saw, most of it is out of the box. When you start talking to Informatica or Delboomi about implementing that type of solution, they need to custom build it, as we talked about before. So with Informatica, we run into Informatica pretty much all the time, and we are at least 50% cheaper, if not more. Same with Delboomi. Delboomi is a little cheaper than the Informatica implementations generally, but they also come in higher. Now, that's just the cost side of the house. Now, if you talk about timelines, as Duet is an off-the-shelf product, it takes us only 2 to 4 weeks to implement. Depending on their additional customer requirements, that might be a little longer, but the base covers 90% of the required functionality. With the Informatica and the Boomies, what's going to happen is that it's custom built. So it needs to be developed, it needs to be designed, it needs to be completely done from scratch. So it takes many more months and the risk is much higher. Duet 360, as it's an off-the-shelf product and it works, the risk is very low. With other solutions, the risk is high as it's a custom built solution. And with that, it's not just the implementation itself, it's also the ongoing maintenance. As we use the Duet platform, we can easily add and change functionality. If the business model of the customers change, it's easy for us to add and change everything. When you have an Informatica platform or Delboomi, it's custom, so everything needs to be done. So it needs to be changed. So resulting in additional post-go live customer cost that they really don't want to pay, but they don't have a choice. So in post-go live maintenance, argument is that the Duet 360's product is much cheaper than the competitors. So the total cost of ownership in 3 to 5 years is going to be much less. So Duet is built for that, and that's what it does for our current customer install. All right, so now we're going to go into a live demo, and I'm going to share my screen here. So what you'll see right now is this is the Salesforce Duet sales dashboard. So Duet out of the box has a lot of objects that are created. And so what you see in this is there's data coming from Salesforce or residing in Salesforce. And there's data that comes in from an ERP. We use in this case Sightline as the ERP. And what you see here is, for example, you see order value by product. This information is generally not available to the sales teams just because the data is not connected to Salesforce. And so reps are not in the ERP, they don't have that information. And they won't see which products are invoiced, which are shipped. What's the value of your customer, right? So this data literally came from Sightline, and you see here the information that's associated to this. So in this case, you see the product that was sold, and you see what the status is. It's invoiced, it's open, it's shipped. So you have the latest and the greatest information on the customers that ordered the product and what product value they had with your customer, with you as a company. And then you see the order value here, which customer is more, let's call it valuable than others. Now, when I say that, it sounds a little worse than it is. But when there's a rep out on the field, and there's 5 customers in the same area, and the customer that you're gonna meet is not available, fell out sick, or somebody's not available to talk to you. So it's important to understand which customer is of more value to you. And you would like to know when you are in that area who is going to be available, and you want to select the person who has the most value to you as a company. In other words, if you have a customer that had 5 quotes requested and you only closed 1 deal, and another customer had 10 quotes and they closed 10 deals with you, I know where I'm going to go. I'm going to talk to the person who actually requests a quote and wants to pay and buy my product. So that's important information. That's additional intelligence for the sales rep. You also have, for example, instant insight into open invoices. So the Ting Bicycles has 51K open, and I see that others have some open invoices, and I may want to talk to them, as I'm talking to them anyways. I may want to bring it up. Coordinated Bicycles, for example, has a negative invoice. They're 45K. That means that there's a credit pending for them. This information is readily available to the sales rep. And as you can see here, this is the detail. And if you want to click down, use standard Salesforce functionality, and you have all the details that you'll need as a rep. So all this information is readily available for you. Okay, so I'm going back into the dashboard. Other information is customer orders by month. What's important? It's important for manufacturing distribution companies. You can create an order, and an order can consist of multiple lines. And most of our customers, they actually do ship based on an individual order line item. The reason for this, it is basically the recognition of revenue. So revenue recognition is happening as soon as the product got delivered to a customer and the signature was there. If you have a huge order with thousands of line items, you don't want to wait. Your customers doesn't want to wait for the order to be completely fulfilled. They want to ship parts if possible, so they can recognize the revenue as they go. That information is generally not available in Salesforce, and with the integration with Duet, it is. You have additional information on historical shipments and also orders by country. These are just some examples of information that is accessible in Salesforce. And as we all know in Salesforce, if the data is in Salesforce, you can report on it. So we can report on pretty much anything, but if we were to do that, you'd see a lot of reports on this dashboard, and it would be not something that would be very consumable. All right, so basically what we show here is some of the data that is in Salesforce, and the reality is why do we register all this information? We register it because we want to report on it. And so we're going to go into some of the basics of what does Duet offer when it comes to integration with Salesforce. So this is the account Claymore Bicycles. I see I have a couple of contacts here. I have ship-to information. This ship-to information literally came from the Sightline ERP. Ship-tos do not generally reside in Salesforce. They have to be integrated, and they come from an ERP. And as stated before, most of our customers choose to have that maintained in Sightline or in an ERP, and Salesforce consume that. You have some objects here, you have opportunities, several other opportunities that are in Salesforce. These are standard opportunities. We didn't change anything to it. You see quotes underneath it. And here's a couple of thoughts regarding manufacturing in general. Salesforce out of the box will facilitate when you have a quote, it needs to be associated to an opportunity. The opportunity value will basically be a roll-up of the quote value. And then based on the individual opportunity stages and the categories, it will be forecasted into Salesforce as a sales forecast. Now, a lot of manufacturing distribution companies don't necessarily use Salesforce as a forecasting tool. They will use Salesforce as a registration tool for quotes and all kinds of sales-related information, but they don't forecast. And so what we've done with the Duet 360 project, the product will get the quotes from your ERP into Salesforce, or if you're using Salesforce CPQ, from Salesforce into ERP and back. But it's a standalone object. In other words, it's not associated to an opportunity. It is associated to an account. Reason for that is a lot of the customers in the manufacturing space and distribution space do a unit forecast, which happens in the ERP. So a lot of forecasting functionality may not apply to the manufacturing distribution space. Now, we also account for if a customer does want to use it. Of course, we'll associate the quote to the opportunity using the standard process into going to the forecast. So that's not different. We just give customers additional options where they say, I do or do not want the quote associated to an opportunity. All right, so great example here is that we have an ERP quote, and the ERP quote basically has pretty much the standard information. There's an extended amount, there's a grand total, the payment terms, bill to, ship to information, and it also has some of the line items details. So as I said, there's a quote, it has quote lines. If the quote comes from ERP, then this is the information that you can get. We can also extend this. We can make this more complete, we add more fields to it. But the bottom line is this information is available to the person in the field. If I go back into the main screen, and I'm not going to go to too much detail on the ERP quote, but this is what it shows, and we can configure this however you want. Now, we also have customer orders. Orders do come mostly from the ERP, and the same thing applies here. The quote, the order shows up here, and as soon as there's an update from the ERP, then you'll see that here. So that information is basically going to be consumed by Salesforce. Some additional things, the bill tos and ship tos, shipments are here. You'll see invoices with invoice line items. So all that detail will show here. And the same thing as an invoice gets updated on the ERP side, it'll show in Salesforce. Receivables information is basically about how much did the customer spend with you over time, so total customer value. This is important because if you have a customer that has a high value to you, you want to talk to them more often. It will determine and change the behavior of the sales rep. And the last thing that I want to discuss, and there's none here, but the customer returns. And when the customer has a return of a product, it gets processed in ERP, and that information is going to be available to the sales rep to take a look and understand what the status is. So if the customer is asking a question, that information is available to the rep to share with the customer. All right, now I'm going to go and I'm going to show you on my iPad how that works. It's going to be the same, but I'm just going to show you how simple it is and how it looks. All right, so you now see my iPad, and this is the same reports as you saw before. So this is just standard Salesforce 1. And it's a custom object that we use to house the data from your ERP. And if I scroll down, you'll see exactly the same information. I click on the invoice, I get the same detail as I just showed you before, and I can go through all of the details that I want to. So if I want to see an invoice line, I click on that, and it shows me all of the details. And so basically, everything that I just showed you in the user interface is of course available in Salesforce 1. So this gives the rep the ability and the visibility in all of that happens with their account. So when you talk to a customer or when your customers talk to their customer, they have all of this information available. So the invoices and all the other details. So if I scroll down, you see shipments, you see orders, you see quotes, you see all of that information. So it literally gives you your customers their visibility into their accounts, and having more data available on your customer is helpful. So that's what Duet 360 will do for your customers. All right, so we have a couple more minutes left. I would like to go into the detail and basically how do we engage and how can we work with you as teams and help you close more deals. And we're going back to the presentation here.
Here we go.
All right, so these are the customers that we signed up for integration. This is just a short list of customers that we have. These are all happy customers, and we really have no issues. They signed up for Duet, and we have a very high customer satisfaction score. If you heard, it's a 9.86 out of 10. So we did do something right. Okay, to wrap it up, how can we help? So a couple of thoughts here. We can help you increase your deal size. So we had a customer before, They went for the enterprise initially, and we were able to get them into limited just because of some functionality that they were looking for. And so basically the deal size doubled for the rep. We do custom demos. We have customers that Salesforce CPQ was presented. The customer wasn't sure that that was going to be the right solution. So we did a custom demo. This was in the manufacturing space. We had a very complex demo. It took us 4 weeks to build. But the customer signed the 200 Salesforce CPQ licenses. We can also help you with finding references. We have a lot of references. We only showed you a couple, but we have so many of them. They are on Salesforce. They have an integration. We can basically help you in that process. So a lot of these references are available. So at any time, we can bring them into the sales process. So currently, when you sign a Jitterbit, when Jitterbit is into your accounts, you get a 10% quota relief on the Jitterbit platform. Same applies to Duet, as it's based on Jitterbit. You get a 10% quota relief against your quota when we sell into your account. Some things that we can promise you as a partner: we have quick response times. There's no need for anybody to wait. If you guys need support, need help, need answers, we can do that quickly, and we will not slip on that. We'll be always there, and we'll always respond quickly. In the sales cycles, you can use this as a trusted advisor. So several of the sales cycles that we're in, sales reps are looked at sales reps, which is fine. That's not an issue. But they're asking also information about specific industry processes. We can help the customer with that. We can build credibility. Here's how it works in Salesforce. Here's how it integrates to ERP. This is the process that you need to think of. That information is shared with the customer. And as a result, we have a lot of credibility with customers. So if there's a question that they have about Salesforce, they will come to us as well. And then we can, behind the scenes, work with the AE, find out how to answer that and get back to the customer as a united front. So all this is designed to help you sell more into your accounts. The last one that is important here is, how do we engage? So when we're in a sales cycle, we have a business architect involved. The business architect is responsible for making sure that the solution is provided to the customer based on their needs. So that business architect role, that person is going to be there throughout the project. So from the start, when we start selling the solution, all the way till the end of the solution, the delivery. And that gives us the high satisfaction score, because the architect has been there throughout the process. There's no uncertainty. So these are the things that we can help with. Now, how can we engage? As soon as we engage, we'd rather be engaged sooner rather than later. It's easier to be involved early in the process so we can understand what's going on. If you bring us in halfway in the process, we need to keep up and need to figure out and catch up on what happened. So earlier is better. So all of this, what we just discussed, it's all about Duet being a solution that's going to help you in your deals, de-risk your project, give you a competitive advantage over your competitors, and increase and improve your customer satisfaction ratings. So customers that use this solution are extremely happy, and yeah, they come back and they buy more product. So now we're at the end of the presentation. Are there any questions?
Rob, I do have a couple of questions. They're mostly related to price. I think it's based on that slide we showed about the comparison to Informatica and Del Boomi. So it's the bottom line is, are we comparing the same projects? Is it the price comparison? Is it for the same project, the 35K, 100K, and 80K?
Yeah. So we compared that. So every time we run into a competitive deal with Del Boomi or Informatica, we try to find the code from the customer what the deal is and what the pricing was. And consistently, the Del Boomis and the Informaticas are higher. And it has a very logical explanation. It's very simple. It's off the shelf versus custom built. So it already exists. So we've done this already. And so we can actually give the customer what we have out of the box. So yes, this is an apple to apple comparison.
Perfect. Well, that's pretty much it. I think we are a little bit over. So thank you, Rob, for a lot of great details. And thank you everybody for joining us. We'll make sure to share all the information with you, and yes, have a great day. Thank you. Bye.